Tonight, Donald Trump deals Canada a major new trade blow. A fresh timeline for soaring tariffs.
That's the last thing that we need at this point.
The warning and the president-elect's ultimatum. The Prime Minister's response to growing criticism about the speed of Canada's military spending.
We are on a clear path to reach 2%.
Why business leaders are also urging Ottawa to pick up the pace.
If all signals from the United States and others is, you got to shape up or we will ship you out, I don't think that's a bluff.
Black Friday ushers in a critical holiday sale season. How much shoppers are planning to spend?
We're trying to stay as tight to a budget as we can.
Everybody's feeling the pinch.
Plus,
walking pre-game to get to the rink because there's way too much traffic.
An NHL team's off-ice face-off against Toronto's notorious gridlock. And taking esports to the next level.
Every university is kind of stepping towards that direction of recognizing esports as a thing.
University training, that's anything but textbook.
Esports is an amazing way to get into the world of competition.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. The incoming U.S. president has prioritized a massive tariff hike with potentially punishing consequences for Canada. This evening, pledging to carry it out on his first day in office. In a post on Truth Social, Donald Trump wrote, on January 20th, as one of my many executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States. Let's bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vass Capello. So, Vass, we knew about this threat before, but now we know the when. What's Donald Trump's objective here? What does he want?
And we know the how, right? The federal government and provinces thought, okay, worst case scenario would be subject to a 10% tariff across the board. Now Donald Trump is saying it's 25%. And in his social media post, he very specifically ties that to drugs. In particular, he says fentanyl and all illegal aliens, stop this invasion of our country. So the broader question is one of border security. At least his focus appears to be that. I will say that I am hearing from people in and around the Prime Minister who say the two spoke after this post on social media, that Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau, our Prime Minister, spoke. They're characterizing it as a good discussion. I'm also told, though, that the Prime Minister pointed out to President Trump the number of migrants who cross from Canada to the U.S., he says, is a tiny fraction, which is true, of those who cross from Mexico, less than 1% of the total number. So the government appears ready to focus on the border. What actions they're going to take in response, still a big question mark when it comes to the border in that vein. But the conversation between the two has at least happened, Omar.
Actually, to what extent is Trump using what he said tonight as a negotiating tactic to demand or draw out certain concessions?
Yeah, a person I spoke to close to the Prime Minister who advises him said, even if it is just a threat, they have to act as though it's fact and act accordingly. And so that brings about the specter or the possibility of counter tariffs, which would have an immense impact on Canadians, on the price of goods, on the price of gas, of groceries, you name it. It would almost be like a double whammy to our economy. I will say this is where the Team Canada approach is going to come in. I'm told that the Prime Minister tonight spoke with both Premier Ford and Premier Legault. My anticipation is a lot more of those conversations and a lot more focus on the border. Omar?
All right, Vashi, thank you. And speaking of trade, there was also a warning from business leaders today who say Canada is vulnerable in those trade talks with the U.S. because it isn't living up to its NATO military targets. It's something Trump has taken aim at in the past. And as CTV's Judy Trin tells us, the Prime Minister was back on the defensive today.
We are on a clear path to reach 2% in the coming years.
Canada is one of 8 NATO countries that hasn't met the defense spending target, and doing so by 2032 is not fast enough for business leaders, not with Donald Trump coming into office, threatening to impose tariffs on all imports. There's concern the delays will impact future trade negotiations.
There are serious implications if all signals from the United States and others is, you got to shape up or we will ship you out. I don't think that's a bluff.
The Business Council of Canada is calling on the federal government to turn the defense sector into the nation's economic backbone. It wants the NATO target reached in 5 years. That equates to $75 billion spent annually on the military by 2030. Defense officials have only budgeted $58 billion, a gap of more than $17 billion.
You say you want me to spend this much? The answer is yes. You say you want us to go faster? Yes, but frankly, the current relationship with industry, the way things are done, our procurement processes, our relationship with our allies, it takes a lot of time.
I'm here to help.
At this procurement conference, military contractors are lining up for a chance to sell the government more equipment and build it. But shifting billions to defense will require reviewing federal priorities and possible cuts to other departments.
Governments are elected to make difficult choices. Governments have chosen to really burst the size of our public service, disproportionate to the levels of hires that have been having in the private sector.
At this point, Canada is only spending 1.37% of its GDP on the military. Meanwhile, incoming President Donald Trump and NATO Secretary General says 2% is no longer enough. It's the minimum requirement, and Canada is still years away from meeting it. Omar.
All right, Judy, thank you. A judge has dismissed the election interference case against Donald Trump. It came after U.S. prosecutors moved today to dismiss federal proceedings against him. Trump was accused of plotting to overturn the results of the 2020 election and illegally holding on to classified documents. The move to halt those cases was revealed in court filings and was expected. A Justice Department policy says sitting presidents cannot be prosecuted. Trump responded online, calling the cases, quote, empty and lawless. Back here at home, the Prime Minister condemned violent anti-NATO pro-Palestinian protesters in Montreal on the weekend. The city's mayor, Valérie Plante, says it was caused by agitators who put people's security at risk.
That's why we call them like professional vandals, right? That's one way of, for some people to get, I don't even know if it's getting their voice heard. I think it's just using a cause to break things. And again, I want to say even to put people's security at risk.
Police arrested 3 people for assaulting an officer at a demonstration that saw building windows smashed and cars torched. The city's police chief says there may be a delay in making more arrests because most of the protesters had their faces covered. A deal to halt the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah militants in Lebanon may come within days. That's according to an Israeli official who says the proposal will be discussed at a cabinet meeting tomorrow. Despite the potential breakthrough, Israel pressed on with airstrikes in Beirut's southern suburbs. It comes after a weekend of violence between the two sides. The proposed deal would see Israel withdraw from southern Lebanon and the Lebanese army move into the border area, which has been a Hezbollah stronghold. Legal arguments are underway in the sexual assault case against 5 members of Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey team. Dylan Dubé was one of 3 players to attend court in person today. The 5 players were charged earlier this year for an alleged assault on a woman in London, Ontario in June of 2018. All 5 are expected to plead not guilty. A jury trial is scheduled to begin next April. Well, today marks exactly 1 month before Christmas, with the holiday shopping season kicking off at the end of this week on Black Friday. CTV's Heather Wright with a new snapshot of how much Canadians are planning to spend.
The Christmas music is playing. The wreaths are being made. The busy season for Bruno Duarte has begun.
I'd say for the next 3 weeks is our big main push for sales.
Duarte owns a flower shop in Toronto, one of many small businesses preparing for holiday shoppers, many of whom remain cautious.
Even for us, like purchasing everything from compared to last year, it's gone up. So it's just, it's everybody's feeling the pinch.
According to a survey for the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, 46% of Canadians plan to spend less for the holidays this year than they did last. Only 8% plan to spend more.
Yeah, we're trying to stay as tight to a budget as we can, for sure.
While inflation has cooled, prices remain high for both consumers and businesses. The CFIB is encouraging people to do as much shopping at local businesses as possible.
Your dollar goes a lot further when it's spent in your local community. In fact, 66 cents on every dollar spent local stays local. That compares to only 9 cents when you're shopping at, say, Amazon.
And while Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals online are hard to miss, prices at the local shop down the road might be even better.
Go into your small business and check. I think people think that online is a lot more price competitive than it actually is. Tons of small businesses are running sales around Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday as well. It really is worth a look.
Black Friday marks the unofficial start to the shopping season. It's the day after American Thanksgiving, but because the holiday is so late this year, there are actually 5 fewer days between November 29th and Christmas Eve. A shorter shopping season, something else retailers are having to contend with. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
And making it more challenging for small businesses, the strike at Canada Post. Day 11 today and no major breakthrough.
Our at the table bargaining, Canada Post has been laying off our workers. Over 150 workers were laid off last week.
The Crown Corporation and the union representing postal workers are working with a special mediator. And mechanics and clerks at CN Rail have voted in favor of strike action that could see workers walk off the job on New Year's Day. The union is calling for better job security, compensation, and working conditions. Negotiations are set to resume next week. The U.S. is expecting a record-breaking holiday travel season with nearly 3 million people expected to fly tomorrow for American Thanksgiving. New airline regulations have also come into effect, requiring airlines to compensate passengers for delays or cancellations. CTV's Alex Carpa on what the new rules mean for Canadian travelers.
New regulations now force US airlines to provide swift and automatic refunds for passengers when their flights are either canceled or significantly delayed.
It really does take, passenger rights to the next level.
Those flying through the US can get a refund if their domestic flight is delayed for more than 3 hours or if their international flight is delayed for more than 6 hours. The mandate states airlines must provide refunds within 7 days for credit card and within 20 days for other payment methods.
There's nothing you have to do. It's going to be automatically distributed and into your bank account, into your credit card, for everybody that's affected by that flight cancellation or that flight delay.
In Canada, it's up to travelers to know their rights and requires them to go through the refund or compensation process, which can be a long and painful one. But Canadians traveling through the U.S. or flying on American carriers will qualify for the new U.S. rules.
Would we like to see what we're seeing in Europe or in the U.S. from a passenger standpoint? Of course, that's what we want. But airlines have been doing this for a while, and they know how to work the system.
Gabor Lukács, who is the president of Air Passenger Rights, says Canadians still have a right to a refund when there are delays or cancellations, but is calling on the federal government to simplify the rules for passengers.
The idea is for smooth interaction between passengers and airlines, the rules have to be very easy to understand, very easy to see, very easy to implement. And unfortunately, that's not what we are seeing happening.
The legislation itself is still very new, only coming into effect at the end of October. And although it's good news for Canadian passengers, it's still unknown when this legislation could make its way north of the border. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Well, from the sky to the road, if you're a driver in Toronto, you know all about the city's frustrating congestion issues. But it also impacted an NHL team over the weekend. Downtown traffic ran some major interference on players from the Utah Hockey Club who were in town to take on the Leafs. CTV's Natalie Johnson has the story.
Walking pre-game to get to the rink because there's way too much traffic.
5:15 p.m. on Sunday in Toronto, and these NHLers from Utah realize getting down to their game is faster on foot.
So it's just pretty much the whole team walking the street.
Their team bus caught in congestion, the players telling the tale of Toronto traffic on Instagram.
It was embarrassing that, the Utah Hockey Club has to get out of the bus and start walking to the hockey arena. It's just unacceptable.
But it was far from the first time that this happened. High-profile visitors getting gridlocked and letting the whole world know.
It took us 30 minutes to go a block.
What's up with the traffic in Toronto?
Taylor Swift made it through with the help of this motorcade.
Traffic's too bad in Toronto, so we're walking to the venue.
But other celebs like this former One Direction singer, not so lucky. Toronto's mayor blaming the holdup for the hockey team that was formerly the Phoenix Coyotes on a different celebrity in town.
The Coyotes met up with Santa Claus. And the Coyote lost because the Santa Claus parade was just finishing. All the big floats and the people flooding out from the Santa Claus parade was jamming that whole area.
Let's keep in mind we have big events in the big city every single weekend, and I think Torontonians expect us to get the basic things right. That is about the facilitation of movement for goods and people across Toronto, and it doesn't really matter what day it is.
Some Torontonians say the city's image stands to suffer.
It's not too good of a look, I guess. It probably hurts their reputation.
For sure it does. Even residents of the city don't like getting around.
Santa didn't conspire together with the Leafs. I'm glad that the Maple Leafs won, but apologies to the Coyotes.
By 15.
Pro athletes who have taken their team bus through their fair share of big cities, calling it a first.
Never saw that before.
Toronto once again making headlines beyond hockey for all the wrong reasons. Natalie Johnson, CTV News, Toronto.
Coming up, moment of impact. A cargo plane crashes in a ball of fire in Eastern Europe. Plus, the delay for a pair of notorious killers in their new fight for freedom. High waves may have been behind the sinking of a tourist boat in the Red Sea. At least 17 people are missing. The boat, named Sea Story, had 31 tourists and 14 crew on board for a 5-day diving trip. 28 were rescued. Authorities say there was a distress call just before dawn today. And we have new video of the moment a cargo plane crashed as it came in for a landing at an airport in Lithuania, killing a crew member and injuring 3 others. A fireball lit up the sky as the DHL plane came crashing down. Some of the debris damaged a house. The plane was operated by Swift Air and had taken off from Germany. The Menendez brothers could be heard, but technical problems prevented them from being seen together in court for the first time in decades after murdering their parents. Here's CTV's Joy Malvin on why their new bid for freedom was delayed and the family's plea.
Public interest was so high, the California court held a lottery for the 16 seats inside the hearing.
And I remember this trial when it happened, and I think that they were really done an injustice.
Everyone asks why we kill their parents.
A Netflix series and documentary on the Menendez brothers has reignited new buzz in the decades-old case. Eric and Lyle Menendez were convicted nearly 30 years ago in the gruesome shotgun murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty. They testified in their first trial they were sexually abused by their father.
He raped me. My dad had been molesting me.
Prosecutors dismissed the abuse claims as untrue, but new evidence has come to light, including a letter Eric wrote to his cousin months before the murders detailing his father's alleged abuse. And a former member of the boy band Menudo alleges he too was raped by Jose Menendez. Kitty's elderly sister allowed to take the stand, both aunts making an emotional plea for their nephew's release.
I do want them home. They should never have been in such situations as presented themselves. What can a kid do when its father's?
35 years is a long time.
But the judge said he needed time to review 17 boxes, a mountain of evidence.
We're hoping that we will, in fact, get the brothers released.
And the new tough-on-crime district attorney insists he won't be rushed either.
I won't rely on just a Netflix documentary or a Netflix docuseries as the source of my information to make this a very, very important decision.
The brothers' resentencing hearing now postponed to the end of January, and it could be many months before or if the brothers are released. Omar?
All right, Joy, thanks. Still ahead, a breathtaking sight off the shores of Vancouver. A pod of hungry orcas spotted on an afternoon snack run. Canada's Border Service has announced 3 seizures of cocaine totaling nearly 500 pounds, and they're crediting a pooch. The shipments were concealed inside commercial trucks crossing into BC in mid-October and early November, and were discovered with the help of the border agency's detector dog service. All 3 drivers were arrested. The drugs had an estimated street value of $6.6 million. And some very lucky tourists in BC were treated to an extremely rare sight, a family of killer whales in the waters off downtown Vancouver. The 4 orcas were spotted by a passing ferry quietly swimming near Sunset Beach. At one point, the mother and her 3 offspring passed within meters of a water taxi. Marine experts think the whales were hunting for some harbor seals for an afternoon snack. And a creative new video technique to show you now in zero gravity. An astronaut on board the International Space Station captured a spinning selfie. Don Pettit posted the results online yesterday, calling it a new spin on orbital video. He regularly posts about life on the ISS. Dizzying but fascinating. Still ahead, the exciting intersection of education and gaming. Esports are video games that are played in highly competitive environments. The popularity is exploding in Canadian schools, with students at one university in New Brunswick bringing their A game. Here's CTV's Sarah Plowman.
Welcome to the warm-up.
Just stretch out the hands and stuff.
A flex to the fingers, a jolt to the joints. Time to get their game face on.
This dance of being able to outdo your own opponent in a one-on-one situation.
Simon Séger and his teammate are about to battle. They'll sit, not sprint, but quick reflexes are required.
I play a lot of one-on-one games. So for me, a lot of it is mental fortitude.
It may seem like play, but this is competitive and at a high level. These players are on the Université de Moncton's Esports team.
Esports is an amazing way to get into the world of competition.
And that world of competition is widening. UDM not only has an esports team, but that team now has this training room with high-tech computers and consoles. The school funds the team's travel to tournaments against other Canadian universities.
But it's really becoming a common thing. I think every university is kind of stepping towards that direction of recognizing esports as a thing, right?
They're not alone. A first for Calgary. Bow Valley College recently opened its own esports hub for competitions, innovation, and game development. All part of a booming industry that's growing in popularity.
We have coaches, we have training sessions.
And here there are tryouts. Not everyone makes the cut.
I'm looking for team synergy. How well do these people work together?
It's fun and games. Players will tell you their skills are transferable.
What this teaches you is to be persistent. It teaches you that, okay, I will keep trying. I will keep trying in what I'm doing. Even if I keep doing mistakes, even if I keep failing, I will keep trying.
Words of a fierce competitor. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Moncton.
And that's a snapshot of this Monday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.